Hey, this is Ahavah again, and today is December 10, 2023, and I'm continuing on with the recording I made last December 3 regarding my return to Israel way back in 2004. And I actually stopped when discussing the event during the eve of Palm Sunday 2024 after spending, I think, over an hour or little over an hour inside the edicule with the German priest, I think, and this French lady, which I mentioned. So after that, I was discussing already the first ever moment when the lighting instrument was moving distinctively, like it has a mind of its own. I don't know if it's only me who's noticing it, and that's why I have kept this matter quite some time before I wrote about it, and I actually wrote only about it when 10 years ago, 2020, 2013, if I'm not mistaken, before I went to join the Cistercian monastic Trappist in Guimarães. And as I mentioned, the wind at that time was very distinctive already, and it only died down, the intensity, and because there was a service in the, around 12, it's like a vigil of some sort. I'm not too familiar with it. I was just there, and I was advised that during the start of the Holy Week, there would be midnight vigils. And although there was, when I was staying there, most of the congregation, the Greek, the Armenians, the Coptic would do their thing every midnight of some sort. They would be incensing each of the altars inside the Holy Sepulchre. So it's not something new. It's just that it's Holy Week, and they were more or less trying to celebrate the Holy Week. That's why there were pilgrims that were coming in as soon as the doors were open. And that's when I mentioned I saw Nasokoro, and when I was going outside of the edicule, and then we stayed in we went in the chapel, and that's where the first ever incident of the lighting instrument moving, very distinctive. And back then it was a bit surprised because I wasn't expecting anything like that. My consciousness is that there would be a sign of some sort that would be known to those who would need to know, and then as to what that sign would be, I had no idea. I just only associated after the event happened. Perhaps this is that sign that was made known to me, because it was very distinctive, And as the wind was blowing stronger, because there was a prayer service during that time, and each time the wind will move distinctively outside of the church, because you could hear the whistle of the wind, and those who were present there would more or less validate what's happening, and they and my experience, because it's a little bit very distinctive when each time that it moves and it whistles, the lighting instrument would immediately distinctively point to my direction. And I was seated at the middle of the altar, and the two lighting instrument, the tip of the light, like bending, like there's some force that is making it bend and distinctively point towards my direction. And it was two lighting instruments, so it was going like that. And at first, I just did not pay attention to it, because I was so tired. But it was happening all throughout the prayer service, and it was very distinctive. And then the prayer service concluded, and then there would be this procession around the edicule, and then they will all go back there. But I decided to stay in the chapel because I was so exhausted because of what took place in the edicule at the time. So I just decided to stay, and then from the center, I moved at the side of the chapel, which is when you're on the altar, I moved to the left. If you are standing at the altar, so on the left side. So if you're facing the altar, I'm on the right side. I'm near the side of the door going inside the chapel of the Resurrection, which is managed by the Franciscans. And it was at this moment that I just inadvertently closed my eyes, and all of a sudden I was made conscious that Pope John Paul II would depart, and it was something certain. Although my mind was a little bit taken aback, because there was a part of me that would not want him to go yet, and it's hard to explain it. It's something very profound. And there was this great fear in me, knowing that he's departing. And lo and behold, a year after that incident, he really departed. And as I was made conscious of that, I suddenly saw the face of then Cardinal Ratzinger, wearing the vestment of, I know, wearing a red vestment, but have that white cap on his head. And it was some of the pictures that he had when he was already inaugurated as the one who sits in the chair of Peter. Um, that image was more or less how I was made to see at the time. And I just uttered, "Oh my John Paul," or something, "Oh Carol." I cannot recall exactly what I mentioned, but I was like sighing, and there it was. And after that event, I kind of just kept it in my heart. And the the congregation returned to the chapel, and that's why it was now that's why I was taken aback, because when I was in the center, I just said that, oh, perhaps it's just happening, and there's nothing to it, something like that. So when I moved to that side, then I didn't expect that the candle light would also point to that direction now, because before I was in the center, now it went like that, and it's not just simple going, moving. It's like it's so defined and so refined, and it's so distinctive. And I was taken aback because, oh, this might be it. Because the consciousness is that there will be a sign for those who need to know. And for me, that was the most significant event that happened, that is very visible and at the same time very sublime and unnoticeable. Only the one who is on the altar, and also those persons who more or less are there often would notice it. Because if you were just going, or for one time you were there and I was there, and then it happened, then you will hardly notice it, because people don't pay attention to those things. However, it just so happened that at that time, I was there, and happened. And at first, I didn't know if that is the um, sign that was made known to me, but I just, tested it, because I said, oh, maybe perhaps tomorrow it won't happen. So, um, because it was very late in the morning already, so I wasn't able to attend the service at the Holy Sepulchre, which is the Christmas, if I'm not mistaken. And so in the afternoon, I went to Notre Dame, where the Vatican embassy was, or is, sorry. And I tried to check. And then I was playing with it, I was testing it in so many ways. Would it move? Would it move like how distinctive, and what is causing it? Why is it happening? So I studied, experiment in so many ways. What conditions triggers it? Is it me, or am I doing something to create the situation? That was my big question at that time. Because if I'm causing it, then it's not, then it's something, it cannot be what was made conscious to me to be the sign, because then it's subjective, it's me who's causing it. So I tested it. I kind of try to see when it will start. So I wrote a lot about it in my journal of some sort. And it's caused not by me, it's caused by the person celebrating the Mass. And based on how I see it, is if this particular cleric or particular cleric, for some reason or another, there is this intense affection for our Lord. It's actually what is causing it to move, and it's their faith in so many ways, and their perhaps sanctity of life, because there was this incident in the Vatican when I was there. There was this group of bishops, and because there it was very distinctive when I was in the Vatican. It's really because at the crypt at the where the popes were buried, there was this incident, and most of the time when I was there and there was someone celebrating, yes, it doesn't start immediately. It normally starts at the when there is this during the what do you call that party? Where the other the when the excuse me, when the Eucharist is being offered, um, it is at that part. Normally, it's very intense, but at the start, it depends really on the celebrant, and that's how I kind of had a relief, because I was a little bit worried if it was me who was causing it. And then that cannot qualify as the sign that was made known to me because I'm causing it. But I've discovered it's independent no matter my state and how I am and everything. It doesn't depend on me. It depends on the celebrant. And going back to when I was in the Vatican in 2008, there was this bishop, and it really didn't move. And mind you, I was always there, and most of the cleric that was celebrating there was, the conditions, everything was the same except for the celebrant. And lo and behold, the bishop involved was celebrating was very much involved in a scandal relating to the abuse of minors. And I was taken aback. I forgot the name of the the bishop, but and that's when I realized that it's really caused by the celebrant. If the celebrant is perhaps not properly disposed or not, does not have that affection, or the celebrant is wanting in affection for our Lord, it will not move. It did not move with that bishop. It stood like a stick. And I tried to do what I did before, because the altar there at the crypt is immediately in front of the where tradition says St. Peter's tomb was. There is this glass door opening, and normally when there are priests or pilgrims celebrating I kind of experiment in it. So I would be at the front, and then I would walk towards the door the door that opens to the tomb of St. Peter. And it's distinctive, it moves, and I realized that that's why I was so very taken aback. And my observation, I kept it with me and in my heart at the time, and I was wondering, why wasn't it moved when all the conditions that were there when it was moving is still there, except for the bishop who was celebrating. And And lo and behold, um, the um, the news item related to that bishop, and it was published. I was taken aback. I forgot his name. And that's one support to my conclusion that it's not me who's causing. It's totally independent of me. And then after that incident, there were other incidents, and it never stopped. Even up to now, although since my incident at Guimaras, wherein I was challenged by my own self, and I'm in so many ways have been tested. And it's a little bit different, but it's still moving. Then going back to 2004 when it started, so I wasn't able to attend the Christian Mass in the morning because I was so exhausted. So I woke up in the afternoon, so I was only able to join the procession from Bethpage to St. Anne's Church, where the Lazarus or the White Fathers are residing, and where the procession will terminate and benediction will take place. It's similar to what's being done even up to now. So after that, no, there's nothing much. Then the after that Sunday, Monday, so I was doing what I was doing for quite over a month already, a little over a month. But there's something very different. And it was Sunday, then Monday, I went to the Holy Sepulchre and then do my thing, pray and everything. And there were moments that I would be catching Brother Andrew and Father Simon in their morning prayers because they arrived early there. So perhaps they weren't able to join their community. That's my assumption. I just don't know why they are doing it there. So as I was there and I was praying, this was after the incident. All of a sudden I felt different. It was triggered. The experience was immediately triggered when Father Simon started praying his bravery, and then another. It was like strengthened by when Brother Andrew the American started doing his reading his bravery. I was wondering, I've been there several times. I was caught inside in the chapel with them doing the same thing, but there was no experience like that. So I was wondering. So that was Monday, then Tuesday, and I said, something is happening and it's repeating. So there was a pattern, and I was observing it's triggered when they're doing that. So because back then I didn't know that that was a bravery. No, I didn't know that um, I was totally naive and innocent of all those activities that religious persons are doing on a routine basis. So I honestly approached Brother Andrew because I was very curious. Because whatever they're doing is triggering it. And experience is all new to me. It's like that I'm engulfed with this beautiful presence, and there's like a blissful blow of wind all over my body, even because it was cold still at the time, and when you're inside the Holy Sepulchre, it's really very cold also. So I was wearing the jacket, and I was experiencing it underneath my clothing. That's why I was very much concerned. And then I asked him, "What are you doing?" Um, and then he said, "Oh, I'm praying the Psalms." And then I observed Father Simon is doing the same thing. I want to emphasize at that time, I have no knowledge of their routine, this morning prayer and everything, nada. So, and even what the book that they're holding and using is, I have no idea what that was at the time. And then sound, that's what he said. And then based on experience, yes, when the songs are sang, that's especially if someone, the one praying, is very intimate or very sincere, perhaps, or very immersed in his faith, it's triggering it because there were those that was reading or the reciting the psalm, but there was no effect on me. That is my basis, and based on these two religions, I realized that it's them that's causing it. That beautiful. It's intoxicating. It's like air conditioned, but it's my something in me is responding to whatever they're doing, and I feel that presence. It's like I am feeling them, and each person that prays have a very distinctive presence when they pray, and I realize it there because Father Simon is a very childlike presence. It's like, although when you look at him, he's advanced in his age, but he's a very peaceful person. And his presence when he prays, based on my experience, what I am feeling is when they are praying, it's their affection and love for the Lord, and that's why there's this distinctive character in the presence which distinguishes one from the other, because not all they might feel the same, but something in me responds differently to which. With Brother Andrew, he's a little bit he's a profound person, a quiet person, and he likes to be alone in so many ways. And although I do not know if what I'm saying is real or it has semblance of reality, he alone could validate, or those who are acquainted or familiar with his personality may also provide evidence to the correctness of my assessment based on how I felt his presence. And that's what I realized, and it took me a while, but when it happened, I have don't have that realization yet. It took me years before actually with concluding it, because based on the experience. And that is the second, aside from the lighting, it's that ability to sense the religious and also the clerics. And I discovered that each cleric has their own distinctive presence, and this is manifested when they are praying. And in the Mass, it is them who preside, so it is their disposition in prayer which leads the congregation into the celebration. And that's why if he is not properly disposed, although it does not affect the validity of the celebration, but it affects the experience of what I'm experiencing. And I realized that. And that's why there are really clerics who's like the bishop that was I mentioned, and lo and behold, that's why I'm speaking it now, because it was validated by the events that he was engaged in abuse. And I think he was, but I don't want to dwell on that. I just want to dwell on the significance of these things. These are the second thing that actually manifested after the event in the Edicule, that beautiful moment. So now each time, each day, ever since that day in 2004, in eve of the Palm Sunday, it happens, though varying in intensity. And in Holy Monday, the reading was so very much aligned in so many ways. And I didn't know that that was the reading. And I attended the Mass that Monday morning. And then I did not expect that it will happen, because my mindset is just, perhaps it's just a coincidence and I'm just seeing things, and I was very much detached from it. However, in the Holy Sepulchre, when there is a Mass in front of the Edicule, there is this light that they place there. Actually, it starts that different candles are placed at the center between where there are benches here, the choir, they're the choir, and also the entrance to the Edicule. The congregation placed their own lighting instrument there at the center. So in the morning I went. This is Holy Monday, the day after the incident. So I joined the celebration and everything. And then lo and behold, there was this first reading, During the event at the chapel, there were only two lighting instruments. In front of the Edicule, there was this light at the center, and all these lights attached to the Edicule, and there was this two big candles at the entrance of the Edicule. I didn't actually notice it. And then the readings were read in Italian, I think, or Latin. It's a foreign language to me, so I do not understand it. Something in me was activated, and then which was not there before, and then the movement of the light, every light there in the edicule, including the one the center, was distinctively pointing at my direction. And I was the only one there. So that's why it's so significant, and for me at the time was so unbelievable, because remember, the trajectory is, all of them have different trajectory. So it means that they're moving with intelligence, because they know my direction. The one in the center was pointing here. The one in the all of the lamp lights that were on the edicule, was the trajectory of their pointing is going like that, because I'm in the front. I'm in the left side facing the edicule. And then the two lighting, they were pointing to where I was. And because their light is big, um, it has a large flame of some so it was really pointing. I was taken aback, and what was red that was in my mind at the time? What was being read that triggered everything, because it matches. That's why it was so significant. It was so unbelievable to look and see how it, because I noticed the movement, because the reading was quite long, and it, when you read in Italian or in Latin, it's not that fast. It takes it the reader enunciate a lot. That's why it takes the reader a lot of time to finish a very short verse. And it, immediately, it wasn't moving at the start when the first reading was read. And so after the Mass, I have this Magnificat, which I normally bring because I need to hear Mass, and the readings are often on foreign language, either in Arabic or Hebrew or Italian or Latin. So if I have that Magnificat, I would be reading. But the thing is, I didn't know the readings at that time. I didn't read it at the start of the week. So after the Mass, I went to Bethpage. But Bethpage was the church. Bakri was not yet around. I befriended the guardian there, so perhaps he was doing something at the time. So there was this the church is here, and then there is, because it's going down. The church is kind of elevated, and there is this place which is lower than the church, and there's a stairs there. So I sat there while waiting for Fakri to open the gate, and then I kind of look at the Magnificat, and lo and behold, the reading, I was. And I said to myself, OMG, that's why, because it was really so distinctive. And the trajectory of it's like those lighting instruments have intelligence of some sort to know where I am. And my next analysis is, perhaps it's you're just seeing it, there's perhaps it's you. But for other third party, it might be just nothing. And that was what I was saying in my mind. I'm challenging the incident in so many ways. And so in the afternoon, I went to Notre Dame to see if it will happen. If that, when the verse is read, will it happen again? So I went early because I need to be there before the first reading. So, and lo and behold, it's the same, although the distinctiveness is not that distinct compared to the Holy Sepulchre. In the Holy Sepulchre, it's so distinct. It's like there is this force that is covering the light and making it move, and it's so hard to explain, but it took me a while to really conclude what's causing it. And then after that incident, I kind of, I said to myself, okay, let's observe, let's analyze, I'm trying to be very rational about everything. So I said, well, perhaps it will just stop after I leave Israel and everything. So to cut the story short, it didn't. it There are incidents that it's moving, but it's not as intense. The intensity is very high when I'm in Jerusalem and also when I was in the Vatican. And in the Vatican, because I was in the Blessed Sacrament Chapel there, the two big lights, that is the thing, If you and also the incident with the French priest and the lighting. That's why if you want to find me in the Vatican or in St. Peter's Basilica, you just have to light the candle and try to find me using it. Because I don't know why, back then and the all the lights was very much knowledgeable on my location. It's like a GPS of some sort, for me, if you really want to know where I am there, because it was a very big place. And also in the Holy Sepulchre, you just light that candle and then observe where it's going, the direction, and then you will find me where I am. And though I haven't tested it, but that was something that I would want to, but asking someone to do that is at that time, would inadvertently dwell on a matter that I'm still in the process of, analyzing and trying to determine if all this is caused by me, and it might be a manifestation of my subconscious. But the thing is that I have that ability of moving stuff, But the thing is, why that? That's the thing. So those were the questions back then. So after the light instrument, the ability to sense religious and clerics, I realized that if I'm continuously exposed to a certain presence, I am like anything, it creates a memory on my part, and that would cause me to associate it to that particular person. Because as I mentioned, based on my analysis, is that each cleric, each religious have a very distinctive presence. And this is activated when they're indulged and immersed in prayer. And when they are there, and I base this on the incident with Father Peter, Polish priest. I was exposed to him several times, I think 4 times, because he was visiting Jerusalem at that time. So normally I'm there, as always, and I was praying. So there were a lot of clerics that came, and then I felt them in varying intensities. And then this distinctive one with Father Peter, the Polish priest, was very, very distinct and very, very powerful in so many ways. So I was there, and then all of a sudden I was consumed again by this beautiful presence, and it's very distinctive. It's you. I would really know it's very different from the others. And then I looked behind, and there was only two gentlemen there. There was this Father Peter and his companion, was also a priest. So I said, it's either these two. And then I looked around, and there was no one there. You know, so it's those two person that's doing it or causing whatever I'm experiencing. And I noticed they were praying the rosary. So I just, you know, perhaps it's just something that won't happen again. So the next day, I was there again. And then it was only Father Peter. And then he was praying. And I was radiating, And I'm like pulsating, that I'm glowing. So, oh my gosh, it's very different. And then on the third day, I couldn't, I summoned all my strength and asked him, and hoping again, so I hope that he knows how to speak English. And then I asked him, what are you doing? When I felt it already. And then he said, oh, I'm praying the rosary. Although I was saying it already, but I want to confirm. And then so praying, reading the psalm, praying the rosary. When a priest prays the rosary, it depends on the priest. Based on my experience, because after the incident, I went back to the US and I happened to chance upon the priest of Hawaiian Gardens in California in St. Peter Shimmel Church, and Father John was there. And he's very similar to Father Peter. When they pray the rosary, it's like there's something in me that is activated, that I illuminated in so many ways. It's like a force of some sort that comes out from it's within me going out. That's the best way I could describe it. I'm very descriptive now because after several years of observing and finally arriving at these conclusions, and I can safely say all those things based on the events that supports my conclusion. And that's why I realized that priests that are very disposed or very close to the Blessed Mother is very much activating me. I went to confession with Father John, and mind you, I couldn't imagine what was happening, because when he was doing the absolution, all of a sudden, from somewhere here inside my torso, kind of just exploded with this beautiful presence engulfing me. I just don't know if Father John is feeling it. He alone could validate it, but I didn't expect that would happen. Yes, I know that when he was praying the rosary, yes, I would be feeling this. It's like I'm pulsating and glowing like that. But the problem is there was a congregation and he was in front, and I was just hearing his voice. It's very different when we are together because you are the confession there was face to face, you talk to the priest. I didn't expect that to happen. That was the first time it ever happened, but it was repeated here in Santa Cruz Church when I go to confession, especially if I don't know what the priest does, but I think 4 times it happened here but the intensity is not as intense with Father John. Because with Father John, I was and then there was this opening, I was confessing, and then all of a sudden I have this beautiful experience, and then all of a sudden there was this flash of after I think during, or I cannot recall exactly, but as he was reciting the absolution, there was this thing above me, and then it was a very beautiful moment. And that's why I always use the experience with Father John as my benchmark, because I am in front of him. I am only the one there, and he's the only one there. So it's either him or me who's causing it, and I know it's not me, at least consciously, not me, perhaps subconsciously. I'm not able to validate that, but on a conscious level, I know it wasn't me who's creating all those experiences. So going back to Father Peter, because of that incident, his presence registered. Myself kind of remembered his presence because it was so distinctive. And lo and behold, in 2008, I was praying at the Blessed Sacrament Chapel in St. Peter's Basilica. It was a normal day. I did not expect to feel what I felt. And I said, oh my gosh, is it Father Peter? And I was so afraid to look because I might be wrong. But I said to myself, I can't be wrong. This is his presence. And then lo and behold, when I turn my head and look, it's him. He just prayed because the door, and then there's this kneeler. And then the moment he prayed, I felt it. It wasn't when he came. It's triggered by the prayers. That's my analysis. That's my observation. It's when the priest prays. And then I saw Father Casimiro coming inside also, because it was him first, and then a few less than a second, then Father Casimiro was there. And they were together, and I said, OMG. And then I was hesitant to approach them because when I met them, it was 2004. And it's already 4 years. I don't know if they would remember me. And so when I decided to stand up and chase them, they already were very much far, because it took me a while to find the strength and the courage to approach them and say hi. And that's me. I'm so introvert, and that's why it's too far already, and there were a lot of people, and then suddenly the crowd just covered them, and I couldn't see them anymore. When I went out, I could still see them, and I was shouting. And then all of a sudden, the crowds just covered there. St. Peter's Basilica. A lot of pilgrims were there. So that was the moment. It was so powerful. It was so profound, and that's the thing. he, after that incident, there was this, I don't know if it's an ability or it, I just call it as an experience, each time I'm exposed to a cleric. So when I went back to the United States, I was exposed to the Augustinians, Father Kevin, Father Grace, Porphyry. So I'm always attending mass, so I kind of practice. It's kind of, I'm testing myself. I sense it's Father, so it's because I was always there, and so I'm always exposed to them, and their presence registers already to me and becomes part of my. But after a prolonged period of time, like 4 years, what I could not believe is that I still remember the presence of Father Peter, and that's the event, the lighting, and this ability to sense, I don't know, sense prayers. I just term it as an experience each time I'm exposed to. Here in the Philippines, it was still happening. There was this priest here in assigned before in Concepcion, and I attended this concert. I don't know why. He sang a song dedicated to the Blessed Mother, and there it was. All of a sudden I was engulfed by that beautiful feeling, and then that made that presence known to me, that it's him. That's why it was during the Holy Week, during the Visita Iglesia, I felt him. And then lo and behold, when I looked behind, it's the priest that sang. But I don't know if I would remember again if I ever am exposed to that priest again. But based on experience, it's like that. It's them who's causing. And I kind of noticed that perhaps they've already, I don't know, but that's the one of the most significant impact of the event of 2004. And then Easter Sunday came, and this was the first. It was after the celebration of Easter, nothing much. I was visited by this beautiful presence, and it was like a wind. I was already at the hostel because I joined the vigil of some sort, and then after that, but the vigil is early. It's not um, midnight something. They made it early because of back then the celebration of Easter is on one date, so all the congregation was celebrating. So the celebration was in advance. So after the celebration, the liturgy was concluded, I went back. And that was the first time that it happened. I thought there was wind. So I decided, there was an opening, I closed it. And then I put the blanket over me. And then I noticed I have blankets, and it's still the experience is happening. So it's not the wind. So it's something. Something was visiting me. It was so beautiful. And makes me glow, And that was the first experience. And in each Easter, it takes place. And I don't know why it takes place. Although of late, it's not as intense as before, but it takes place. So basically, that was the impact of my visit to Israel. And I don't know what these things are. Oh, back then I was totally at a loss, and that's why I kept it to myself. But based on things, I kind of become more, shall we say, familiar with these things, and I'm able to um, cope with it, and most of the validation took place when I was in Guimaras, when I went to the Tagaytay with the conventuals, because I was exposed to clerics and religious at the same time. And although I was saying all these things already, but I kind of withhold how I receive or appreciate this events only now. I'm actually conveying on what I experience and how I perceive, appreciate, and see all these things and express my sentiments over it. And that was basically what happened in 2004 that significantly changed my life, and I've always had this experiences. And I've realized that my connection to certain clerics of certain origin are very distinct from others. I'm saying this because I went in 2010, so I was there for quite some time, and that enabled me to, validate and try to see and appreciate and understand everything, and I realized that because there was this retreat of Mexican and Iberian descent clerics, and because I was always there at the Holy Sepulchre, so I chanced upon them, and saw the effect that they had on me, and it was really significant, as if I'm connected to them, and when they were there, they were not yet praying, yet I could sense them already. And then when they prayed, starting to pray, because they were visiting, and then I joined them in the mass. I happened to chance upon them at the Chapel of the Resurrection, and then I think the next day or in the afternoon, I chanced upon them at Notre Dame, and the experience was there already. And mind you, there was no experience of this nature prior to the event of Palm Sunday, 2004. So I really realized that based on the experience, and I'm qualifying it, I'm not concluding it with certainty, but based on how I've been experiencing these things. So if a cleric is from an Iberian area, like France, like Spain, Portugal, and Ireland, they connect to me in a very distinctive way. And I base this because of the Augustinians, the Irish Augustinians, that in so many ways helped me cope with my depression after coming back because I was really worried about Father Antonio. And Father Kevin was really good at making you feel uplifted, because Sophia has a very jovial presence. And I remember I was so depressed because my thoughts, my everything was back in Israel, and then he started to sing my favorite song that I associated with Father Antonio, Moon River, which was my parents' I think one of their theme songs. So I kind of liked it also. And I started singing it, and then it reminded me of everything. And then he sang it as if he wanted to uplift me, and that really helped me at that time. We were doing our Friday night thing, and he was so funny. And then he sang this other song, and he was really good at it. He has a very, he's very musically inclined, and during one time, it was a Christmas, I was invited by the Santuses, and they were there also, and then he played the piano, and I was, because my personality is, and I'm a very shy and introvert person, so I was just there sitting and waiting. And besides, I'm not that comfortable, though I am at peace with them, but starting conversations with people is not my cup of tea, you know. And I remember that Christmas, it's so funny because he really were trying to put me at ease. I think he noticed that I was a little bit uptight, and then he started playing the piano, which made me, you know, loosen up in so many ways. And that's one. And then the incident at the Vatican with the French priest. It was so strong. And then the candles, mind you, the candles, there are a lot. And they were all distinctively moving. And that's when I realized that it's not me. It's the one. And that's why if I praise with now knowing that it's them, they may have now the ability to control the experience. That's my assumption only, because if it's triggered by them, then they can actually arrest or activate the experience. And that's my conclusion. And I'm relieved because it's not that was causing. Now, with respect to the Italians, it depends on the area where they came from, the Germans. So, and then my analysis is that there is something, it's not whatever the experience is, it is amplified by this is my hypothesis. I don't know if it would be validated or it could be validated. But my hypothesis is that something in these clerics, other than their faith, is contributing to the intensity of the experience. Because, and my assumption is that these clerics, if I am right, in so many ways, have Hebrew lineage. And based on history, those areas were very much part of settlements of Hebrew people during the first and second temple period. In most of the Mexicans were colonized by the Spaniards, and therefore the likelihood of them being carrying that particular genetic makeup is very high. And that is my analysis. Because when you compare the experience from a party, like I was exposed to Chinese, Koreans, or Asian, and other non-Iberian, the experience is very different. Yes, they connect, but when they have this Iberian linkage, they connect with me very distinctively. And that is my hypothesis, that those priests or clerical religious have Hebrew or Israeli lineage. And when you look at their history, because of the forced conversion, so many things that the monarchs of the Middle Ages have done in order to, I think in their mindset was they're doing the Lord a favor in so many ways. But the thing is, my understanding is that no matter confession, no matter what confession a person adopts, the reality and truth of who that person is cannot be erased. And if that person belongs to the house of Israel, which very much is a part of the sons and daughters of Jacob, then whatever confession they have is irrelevant to who they are. Because why fault them for having this faith? And most of their ascendants was forced to convert, and out of fear and out of survival. And that's how I see it. It's amplified. And the other issue is actually the Iberian presence is very distinctive. From that presence, there was this much intense presence, which I felt when I was praying at the Wailing Wall. There was this incident. I was there often because my routine was always at poker, and in the afternoon I would be in the Wailing Wall, or vice versa, or sometimes in the morning, because I do not go to the Wailing Wall around 10 or 1 or 3 because it's very hot there, because the heat is being absorbed and then reflected by the stone. So it's very hot. So I don't go there. So there was this morning, after going to the Holy Sepulchre, there was this one morning I was praying there. And then all of a sudden, a very distinctive presence connecting with me. It's like an electricity. That's why it's so distinctive. The others are very different. And it's like there is this force of electricity permeating over all my flesh. That's how I describe it. I'm narrating it now, but back then I just kept it in my heart because I wanted to, I'm not yet ready to discuss it, but now I am. But so that was how distinctive it was compared to the others. And I looked around, And there was no, because normally the Hebrew people that was there are those with the black big hat and curly, and they were wearing this attire, you know. When I'm with them, there's another. And then I looked around, they're not Arabs, but then I realized that they were Spanish or Iberian descent because they were talking in a language, I think it's Portuguese or Spanish. And they were the only ones there. And then I kind of looked behind me and remembered how it felt. And lo and behold, because I visited Bethlehem. I couldn't visit Bethlehem in 2004 during my first visit, February to April, because I came February, I left April 30th, 2004. Then I came back July 19 or 16, somewhere there. It's the feast of I think it's the feast of Our Lady of Carmel, if I'm not mistaken. So I didn't have a chance to visit Bethlehem. So the incident happened around my first visit. When I came back in July, I was able to visit Bethlehem. And then I was visited again by that distinctive presence. And it's the same character in nature. It's like an electric current going through my veins. When I entered the proximity of Bethlehem, especially when I was, that's why it makes me conclude that most of those who are residing in the Bethlehem area are somehow connected to me, and those person who was praying of Spanish or Iberian descent was connected by the same distinctive presence. And it's like an electric current running through my entire body. That's why it's very distinctive. That presence was very distinctive. And then that same presence is present at Bethlehem. Very intense. My conclusion is that there are a lot of persons who are residing there that causes that experience, and that led me to my wordings of or saying that they are connected to me in so many ways because of that. And when I went to Compostela, because I happened to go to Compostela after I visited Israel, because that was November. I think I went to Israel around May. I was able to visit the Church of St. James. And that particular presence, the connection is identical. My conclusion is whoever was there there were persons in the Church of St. James and the one buried in the courtyard. Someone buried in that, because when you go to the chapel, to the Church of St. James, before you reach the church, there is this open area. And when I went there, that same presence met me, and I felt it, it's very distinctive. So that presence, whoever is buried there, those in Bethlehem, and those Hebrew Iberian descent are somehow connected. And when I visited Compostela, that same presence, even when I was in the air, jolted me, because the effect is like electricity. It's like lightning, perhaps. I don't know, but I could only describe the effect. So those in Compostela, because I visited Compostela in November, towards December, are connected. And then when I went to Binondo in 2014, I think, that same presence met again. So I concluded based on that there were persons residing in that area, the Chinatown area, with the connection with those persons in Bethlehem, in Compostela, and also in the Armenian area. And this leads me to conclude that because of who was, when I visited the Church of St. James, or the Cathedral of St. James, administered by the Armenians, there was this sense of ease, especially when in 2010 I frequently visited the place, because the likelihood that the tradition that is being passed on is true, because the head where it was said to, the head of St. James the Great, where tradition says was buried, the experience is very intense there. And also when I was in Compostela, but in Compostela, as I mentioned already in my video, I don't think the remains in I forgot the term, the bones that they are presenting there, it's not the bones of Holy Father St. James. And I didn't know the controversy back then. I just knew that whatever is inside there, it doesn't activate me. Because I base this on those persons who are living that actually activated me in a very distinctive way. And this is the basis of my statement. And when I went around the church, it's there. If I am correct, his remains is somewhere in that area at the back of the church, because the intensity there is so strong. It's similar to the intensity that was in the courtyard. My assumption is that, and my hypothesis that whoever is buried in the courtyard is directly related to Saint James the Great. Because the experience when I enter the courtyard is very similar to the experience when I'm in front of his head. So they might be related, they might be, I don't know, and this leads to believe that those persons where I'm sensing are all related to St. James because his presence is that presence. It's an electrical presence. It's very distinctive. And that's why I was very convinced, and my conviction is that the bones in that place is not Holy Father James. Because the head, it's either the head in the cathedral is not his head, and that bones is his. It's either way, if I'm wrong, but the head, where I pray often, the whoever is buried in the courtyard, going inside the cathedral, those who are in Bethlehem, those in Binondo, they have the same. And that's why I have a very strong feeling that those bones in that box is not Holy Father St. James. Notwithstanding any pontifical declaration. I hope they conduct a DNA test of that bones. If there is no asymmetric, or if there is, the best way is to compare. They could get, if my experience has semblance in reality and truth, if they would get the DNA of those in Bethlehem, those in Iberian, and those in the one buried and the head, if they get DNA of all that and match it with the bones, I have a strong feeling it won't match. Because the head in Jerusalem is very much the same as the one buried. So I think they are related. For some reason, I don't know who that bishop or someone there, I don't know if it's the bishop or somebody else buried in the courtyard. The records will provide details of who was buried there. That's the only scientific way of proving my claim that those bones are not Holy Father Saint James. And that's also the only way to validate what I was feeling, that those in Bethlehem, because I kind of walked going to the church. It was an ordination of Bishop Shumali. And for some reason, the taxi doesn't want to go. So I have to walk going to the church. So from the moment I stepped out of the car, the intensity is so strong. It means that most of those who were residing in Bethlehem are related to those buried in the courtyard of the Armenians. The head of St. James, if that is really St. James. What I'm saying is they are connected. As to whether that is really St. James' head is something that needs to be determined, but what I'm saying is they are connected. in those in the Binondo area. And I did my research, the possibility that Hebrew people would reach China is there already. And there was Kaifeng or Kaifang, that's the Chinese term for uh, Jews or Hebrew people. So the chances are that because of mobility of people, there's a high possibility. And that's basically one of the things that I'm very convinced. I would only rest my case if, as I said, a DNA test. I kind of forgot where I got off the car because that's where I experienced it. That village, that area going to the church, it's so strong. It's like I'm electrocuted intensely. That's why that's the basis of my statement that those in Bethlehem have Hebrew lineage, and it cannot be denied, and no matter what their confession is now, they are part of the house of Israel in so many ways, and those Chinese, and it's really very distinctive. And I believe if the head is proven really to be Saint James the Great, then all of these persons are related to him. Would you imagine it's only a head? That's why I kind of very reluctant to even consider the bones as this, because the bones were box. The head is interned on the ground, and yet it can affect or has a connection with it very strongly. While the box, which is above ground, not. I think part of his bones are embedded in that image of him, because when I embraced it, I felt it, it's, and I have reason to believe that because of those experiences, that my ascendant is Holy Father Saint James the Great, for one reason. And this statement of mine is based on when I visited Compostela. It's like it acknowledges me. It's second to Jerusalem. Compostela, in so many ways, received me. And although notwithstanding the issue with the bones, but I know somewhere in the church his bones were hidden. It's near the altar because towards the end. And when I saw this video in YouTube regarding the controversy over his bones, I kind of rest my case, because the possibility that the bones in the box, that it's not his, is a possibility because of that controversy. It would have been different if there were no controversy. I would have settled my case or my argument or my suspicion. And that's why I believe that I am a descendant of Holy Father St. James the Great. I base this and based on how I was received by Compostela in so many ways, as if the place embraced me. And also when I visited the Church of St. James the Great, the Armenian Church. And that's my conclusion. And I do not know how real these things are, but based on what I've experienced, and I believe that I am related to whoever is interned in the Cathedral of St. James, managed by their Armenians, and also whoever is interned in Compostela, Spain. My connection is to whoever is interned. And those persons who, for one reason or another, I've met and activated me, I believe they also belong to the house of St. James the Great. They are, in so many ways, connected. And I base this on that. Although now in Binondo, for one reason or another, the experience is very marginal. It means whoever or a number of those who were there in 10 years ago are no longer. Because I'm sensing persons. And each person, if they are, have the same distinctive effect on me, even if they have already been interned, even if they have already rested. My connection is in the flesh. And if science helps, then that's another support to what I experience. So that's it. That is the main thing about, as I said, to Israel, and also the events thereafter, and the events that shall come. For one reason or another, if the apocryphal story about the sisters, but the scripture is saying that based on the scripture, Holy Father St. James is a nephew. If the translation and how it is written is accurate, then based on that, then it makes Holy Father St. James the Great a nephew of the Blessed One. Because it based on how it was written and then translated into English, Saint Blessed Mother and the mother of Saint James, Salome, are sisters. And the genetic makeup of, as we all know, the genetic makeup of our Lord only came from the Blessed Mother, which is identical, if more or less, identical to the sister, if Salome was really a sister. And that is something that may be proven by science if someone would want to fund it. But I guess based on my experience, that is the impact and the realization of all these events. My return to Israel was, in a way, a return. Mostly those who are part of Holy Father St. James' lineage, because based on how I understand it, his family left upon his execution, since they fear retribution of some sort. They all fled to Compostela, which is now Compostela, and it's probable because it was a Roman town, and therefore, if it's a Roman town, there are already Hebrew settlements there because of the first temple period destruction. The diaspora was very much evident already after the first temple. It was again aggravated or after the second temple when the Romans exiled my people. And that's how I relate to it. That's why the feeling of looking back now, the feeling of turning home, because I guess after then, the descendants of Holy Father St. James left Israel. They never returned, or they weren't able to return. And that's why this intense feeling, of me returning home, that part of me that was received by Compostela, that's an event on its own when I visited Compostela. It's like the entire place was blessing me, and because I prayed, and whatever was prayed for us in so many ways given. And I hope that in the near future, if all things would come to pass, that I would be able to draw from that blessing which I received when I visited Compostela. And I guess that's it. I've in so many ways expressed almost everything I was holding in my heart and also in my over this 2004. It was a journey of very far-fetched idea, I guess, because how in the world would I have any connection to the place? That was my question. And then through the years, answers were provided. I guess everything from the moment I visited the place, everything is predetermined in so many ways. And that's how I see it, because no matter how much I resist, no matter how much I do stuff that would more or less um, obstruct it, it finds its way. It's like water, it's like the wind. And that's why having accepted, and see what happens. And if I am truly who I am, and everything that was made conscious to me is correct, accurate, then I have nothing to worry about. Hashem will be with me.